The big hit in the West right now is Lost Ark, which is a Korean MMORPG by Smilegate published by Amazon. Most noticeable thing about this game is that it's an absolute gem whilst being fully free to play. With over 1 million concurrent players ever since launch, the West confirms the game is an absolute blast. And I most certainly agree. With 200 hours into the game already, I'm still having a ton of fun exploring the game and progressing my character. Now, I'm not saying it's all sunshine and butterflies, as there are most definitely downsides to the game as well, but my overall experience with the game so far is positive. And I think what contributes to this most is the fact that I take the game at my own pace and don't get caught up in the rush to end game. Understanding the way Korean MMORPGs are designed is a huge factor as well, since anyone unfamiliar with them might give up on the game within their first couple hours. You're looking at a very boring start, repetitive content, pay-to-win aspects, gender-locked classes, an RNG-based progression system, and much more that the West typically considers to be negative. Nonetheless, I am convinced that the way Lost Ark is designed overall, together with everything it has to offer, will make for great experiences and memories for any new player that's willing to put in the hours. In this review, you will hear about the good and bad regarding different aspects of the game from a new player's point of view. In the first stage of Lost Ark, it's all about leveling, and I think the leveling process is absolutely boring. Until level 50, which you can reach in just a couple days, all you do is run around completing quests while simultaneously being introduced to the various systems of the game. But once you reach level 50, suddenly everything changes. You unlock a bunch of new content that's actually challenging, and more noticeably, you gain freedom in the type of content you do. Now, questing still continues even after 50, and so does leveling, as the maximum level is 60, but the quests actually start to gain meaning and they become more rewarding. The grind to 60 also feels far more real and meaningful. Whilst leveling, you want to follow the main story, which will get you to level 50 eventually. Optionally, you can also do the side quests along the way. Since it is my first time playing the game and I want to experience it fully, I did all the side quests I stumbled upon. What I can say about them is that they're always in the same area as the main story and they take very little time to complete. Therefore, I believe doing the side quests on your first run is a good decision, as it makes for much more rewards and progress throughout your journey. And I must say, I like the way side quests are implemented in this game. They don't derail you from the main story and they can be done with minimal effort. Nonetheless, the quests do feel like they're just there to give you XP until you reach level 50, and completing them up to that point feels very empty and unrewarding. However, after 50, the quests become much more interesting, they take a whole lot more time to complete, and they grant various rewards that truly progress your character. And the same pretty much goes for your gear as well. Whilst leveling to 50, none of your gear matters, so don't spend any time worrying about it and just equip whatever is best in slot at that time. Once you reach level 50 and unlock content such as Chaos Dungeons, you get your first wave of gear that actually matters. This will be the tier 1 set that you will slowly enchant to plus 15, which is where the real grind of this game starts. All of this, the leveling, the quests and the gear, show that until level 50 none of it really matters, and that the leveling process is some sort of tutorial every player needs to go through first before they get to the actual game. Something that's very common among Korean MMORPGs, which I think is a pity because it can be very off-putting for a good chunk of new players who want a sense of progress or perhaps meaning early on. Even for the huge amount of dedicated players that obviously manage to look beyond the dull early grind, I still think it's a shame to remember the leveling process as boring, which simply does the game short in my opinion, because years from now, that's one of the major things the average player will remember when they think back of their Lost Ark experience. But as I said already, the game suddenly picks up once you reach level 50, which completely changes your game experience. Aside from getting your first meaningful set of gear and jumping on the meaningful train of progress, you also get to explore the wonderful world of Lost Ark, which I think is the strongest feature of the game. As you go about progressing beyond level 50, you will travel to countless areas within the game, each with very unique events and interesting NPCs. I genuinely think the various design aspects of Lost Ark are a treat for anyone that hasn't experienced them yet. Whether it's the countless amount of islands that each have their own events, the various bosses across different content that each have challenging mechanics, the different areas and cities that are so apart from each other they make you feel like you're playing a different game at times, and honestly much more. If there's anything Lost Ark is worth playing for any gamer, it's the overall design of the game. Even if you don't want to play this game long term, or you simply want a filler game until the next big update of your main game, I'm very sure anyone can appreciate and enjoy the amazing design of Lost Ark. Aside from world design and boss fights, there is also a lot of positive to be said about the combat. Now, I've only played that blade so far, but the combat has been absolutely fun and amazing. Once again, I don't think pre-50 does the combat system any justice, as you will succeed by just pressing random buttons. But after 50, with the introduction of a ton of abilities you have to avoid and mechanics you have to follow, combat simply becomes a whole other thing. And not only does it matter what skills you press and when, but you can also fine-tune your abilities to serve different purposes. And as you go about using your skill points to make your abilities even stronger, their visuals also change according to your decisions, which I think is a very cool thing. Even the skills and combat once again show that Smilegate heavily values game design and player experience after level 50. One thing you must know about the classes in Lost Ark is that they are gender bound, which once again is a very common thing among Korean MMORPGs. The assassin class specializations, for example, are both female, so if you want to play Deathblade or Shadow Hunter, you have to play a female character. But there are also classes with both female and male specializations, such as the martial artist. However, based on the specialization you choose, you do end up with different skills. So it's up to you whether you prioritize your skills and class or what your character looks like. Now, as far as I'm aware, gender-locked classes don't flow too well in the West. I'm not sure how this is in Korea, but with every MMO we get in the West that has gender-locked classes, we also get a bunch of angry threads on Reddit. Personally, I don't mind it, as I can appreciate both the male and female form, but if you play games and want to feel immersive, it is a bummer not to play the class you are interested in because it doesn't have the gender you want. That being said, the characters look absolutely stunning and you have a decent variety of customization options. It already starts upon creating your character, and the options increase as you advance and unlock new gear and various skins. You can fully build your character to your personal taste and wishes, whether it's about your skills or your looks. I haven't paid too much attention to the story of the game, mainly because the early grind was so bad I didn't want to waste my time double, but from what I hear and what I see after level 50 is that the story is pretty alright. So if you have a bit more patience than I have and you're interested in what the story is about, it's definitely worth sticking around for the cutscenes and paying attention to the dialogues. There is so much to explore in Lost Ark, and given the concept of the game, it really feels like you're on a big adventure in the world of the anime One Piece, which sometimes makes you forget you're actually playing a Korean MMORPG where there most definitely is a daily and weekly grind you have to complete in order to progress your character. In fact, having multiple alt characters who repeat the very same content is a big part of the game, as it will all contribute to your overall progress. Now, I want to make it clear that you can absolutely play the game with just one character at your own pace. Even if you miss some dailies and weeklies, you will still progress even with just one character, but it will simply be much slower compared to completing everything and then again on additional alt characters. I didn't feel the need for alts in my first 200 hours, but now I'm slowly at a point where I start considering them because I'm hitting progression walls. Do I think it's fun? Well, not really. I think designing a game in such a way that progression is increased by playing alt characters is the laziest form of progression design. But again, it is a very Korean thing to do in MMORPGs and something I'm very used to. Combined with the RNG factor on enchanting your gear, the daily, weekly and alt character grind is simply a big part of the game. So if you want to play this game long term, you are looking at a lot of repetitive content on a daily and weekly basis, which once again isn't a requirement, but it does speed things up big time. That being said, I do think taking the game at your own pace is the absolute best thing you can do. I made my first alt character after I enjoyed the game for 200 hours first, and even now I still play on my main because I want to continue exploring and collecting. Progressing my item level is more of a secondary thing, and I'm not in a rush. If you are a new player to the game and you do want to rush gear progression, you're quickly looking at pay to win elements. You can buy cash shop currency for real life currency, and then convert the cash shop currency to in-game currency, which you can then use to buy upgrade materials from the marketplace. Not only can you skip the repetitive grind this way, but you can even neglect the randomized upgrade system altogether as long as you have enough money. Now, there are a good chunk of players that played the game in other regions and use their knowledge to get to higher item levels in a free-to-play manner, but this won't be the case for any players that are completely new to the game. Even if you had to possess said knowledge, the window to make this happen kind of closed already. All in all, I think the way the game is designed, you'll have a lot of fun once you hit level 50, but to get there, unfortunately, you'll have to buy through the boring bits first. I do remember around level 40 the areas and dungeons become more interesting, but the gameplay remains the same in that you just keep spamming G to complete your quests, while simultaneously spamming 8 different abilities to kill anything in your way. Once you are 50, the game picks up big time and everything you do for a very first time is immensely fun. The exploration and collecting also keeps you busy and in my opinion is the best thing about the game. As for the gear progress, it is RNG, it is pay to win, and it does require you to repeat the same content over and over again. But you can also get there without paying anything and without playing on alts, although it will simply take much longer. I would say don't let the gear progress stop you from having fun, because there really is a lot of fun to be had in Lost Ark as a new player. If you decide to try the game out, I wish you lots of fun on your new journey. Take care, and I'll see you next time.